Hey guys, today we are going to be felting our little Peeps bunny. So glad you guys are joining us. So we're going to go ahead and do this step by step, just a couple of things beforehand. With felting, we just want to make sure that we are being safe, right? We're keeping our needles away. These are sharp. As you guys can see, felting uses these little barbed needles. About this much of it is actually really barbed. The rest of it is just kind of a straight steel, right? But that is because what felting is kind of taking this loose fiber. We're going to be condensing until we get into kind of these simpler forms, but they are much more kind of stiff than what we start out with, right? Because we are pulling all of those fibers together, kind of squishing them until we get the forms we like, and they're going to be nice and stiff and hold on to each other for a long time, and they can't come apart. But with that, the needles are sharp, so you want to make sure you're keeping your fingers awake, being safe, and just mindful that those are sharp, right? And you also want to make sure you're going straight in and straight out of any of our foam or our roving. That way you're not going to break a needle. That just makes your life easier because you don't have to worry about trying to dig it out of the foam or find it in your piece. That's always, a tricky one, right? So we're gonna go ahead and start with our little Peep. This guy is built in 4 sections. It's his little body, his little head, and then his ears. So his 2 ears. And he's pretty flat. So the nice thing about this is we're going to be doing simple forms today. You've got your needle in your pack, and then what else came in your kit was your loose roving, and then a small pack of color, maybe 2 of those, because you've got kind of a couple, right? You guys are doing a little more than I am. I've got just the 1 today, and then some black as well to do his eyes and his nose. So you're going to just want to make sure that you know which colors you want, but obviously it's a lot more simple when you're just doing a couple, right? So you're going to start, we got 2 kind of bits. You want to kind of divide your roving into some parts. You're going to start with a piece that just fits in your hand nicely. You're going to just start to kind of push it around with your hand. It's not going to condense a whole lot, but this just makes it a little more manageable to start with your needle. Then you're going to put it on your foam. The nice thing about this is that it does pretty much stay where you place it, and you're going to get to fold it a lot and hold those in place. You want to make sure that you are turning this a lot, because that way you won't get the fiber sticking to your foam and you won't kind of create that divot. It is kind of what happens anyway, but it does help the more you turn it to create that. And then you just start poking. And like I said, you can kind of pull it aside. This is going to start to create that circular form. We're going pretty 2-dimensional with this. I mean, it's definitely a 3-dimensional form, but it is going to be, a little bit flat up here for you guys to see. So it is more flat, so you can just start by kind of poking around. Definitely know what a marshmallow looks like, right? And as we move it, you might notice it sticks. Mine definitely does as well, so don't worry about it. As you move it around, just gently pull those sides in. That'll help you get the more kind of perfect circular form. The more you pull in and shape those, you just want to be mindful that you're not pulling in so far that you get done and you end up with a ball because you've just pulled the sides completely in, right? So poke, but in these beginning steps, just kind of gently pulling those edges will give you a nice clean shape around the edge. Nice circular form. It's going to start out a little bit differently than we have with our other felting. So if you caught any of those videos, we're not working around so much as we're just kind of working from one side of the top right now. All right, so then once you kind of made your way around and you're starting to get a circular form there, you're going to flip it over. That way we can make sure we're working both sides. Once again, kind of regularly turning this, pulling in any kind of funky edges that you've got so that we can keep that circle going. And moving it around just regularly in the circle. And that's what we're going to do for both the body and the head. So you want to make sure with the body that it's a little bit larger than the head as you're felting. That's kind of nice because you can definitely, grab a little less roving as you start on the head. So start with the body so you have a gauge, and then you can start moving it around. And then as you start with the head as their final, step for the circles, you can choose. And then you'll kind of start to notice you've got both sides starting to condense nicely together. Then don't worry too much about the edges right away. I've got a little fluff hanging out on my needle. All right, so then you'll just want to make sure you pick around the top, and we're just flat felting right now, right? We're going to make it a flat form. So you just poke. This part is going to be tedious. It's going to take a little bit. But once again, you kind of do that a few times. You're going to have it stick, flip it over. and grab the other side, do it again. Then you'll notice, you know, you get a couple of these funky little edges here, like this guy. I don't know, well, you can't quite see it. This guy's hanging out here and you've got a couple over here. You can just kind of gently grab those and felt in. It is okay to go from the side. You don't have to just go from the top and go straight in and out. Just make sure you are watching your fingers because it is easy to poke yourself if you're going from the side. You just poke in a circle around the top. You can kind of build that edge up as well by just taking the needle right along the edge. And then we'll just do this a few times. Just make sure you keep pushing it around and moving it. That way it doesn't get stuck to your foam. There's nothing worse than when you kind of are proud of a form and you go to pull it off and it's gonna stick. But the more you move it around, the better. And then if you feel like you're starting to kind of get the circular form really well, but these edges are getting funky, you gently with your hands on one side of it, you can just start poking downward and moving it in a circle, kind of creating a wheel, if you will. And if you go gently around the whole thing, turning it just like a little bit each time, then the more that you do this, you'll kind of get a nice flat edge. You can kind of see on this guy. You can get a nice flat edge that isn't too pokey, and then you'll also just turn it back over and work that same flat circle. So you'll kind of get that edge going and then turn it back over and poke here a little bit. And then once again, turn back over, poke the edge a little bit, rotate around. I would say everything you do, just be mindful that, you know, you're gonna have to make sure that it's symmetrical for the most part. I mean, it's a marshmallow, so they end up squished in the package anyway. But the more you do this, you'll get the hang of it really fast and you'll start to see that form take shape. And it'll come together a lot quicker than it does in the beginning. It feels like you're doing nothing at the beginning. But no worries. We've all got time. We're hanging out at home mostly, right? Except for those essential employees still out and about. But just continue moving those around. Be mindful of your fingers once again, especially on circles. It's so easy to catch yourself just kind of going, oh, I just need to poke there, and then your hand. All right, so continue that. And so what we're looking for is you're gonna start to see this form take shape, and they're pretty similar at the moment, right? They've got a little bit of funkiness happening here, but for the most part, they're pretty similar. But this is way more condensed. You can feel it's a lot more firm than this one. You've got a lot of squish here still, you know, couch pillow. And then this one is really firm. What we're looking for, if you kind of relax your hand, right between your thumb and your forefinger, this little bit of skin and muscle. If you squish that, you know, it gives a little bit, but it's definitely firm. That's kind of what we're looking for here. That's the kind of ideal firmness to start with the next stuff. You want them to be firm, and it can be even a little bit more firm than that. Just make sure you are at least to kind of that firmness before we move on to color. So you're gonna do the first one, the body, and then you're gonna move on and do the head. Same process, you're just gonna do a little bit smaller. So this guy is just a tiny bit smaller. We're gonna stack them together, snowman style. And then what you're gonna do next is grab just a tiny bit of roving, and we're gonna do the ears. And these are really just like little ovals, right? They're just little tiny ovals that we're gonna stick on top. And so same thing, we're gonna be just poking. It's a little harder to condense these from the beginning. And you'll wanna make sure you kind of keep your hands a little more free from this, because it is easier to poke yourself the smaller you're working. But the more you're gonna work these, once again, you can kind of fold it over itself. Just make sure you're keeping your fingers clear. You're gonna work this into kind of a little rectangle to begin with. It'll start to kind of take that form, and then you'll just kind of turn it over. The more you turn it, the more you're gonna get that oval shape, because you'll be working it from all sides. And you wanna work kind of along that edge, that horizontal edge. And then as you start to see kind of the fluff start to form, as you're getting the middle kind of more condensed, but the fluff is hanging out on the outside, move your fingers to the side and just start poking inward with that fluff. You can kind of hold it if you want to. Just once again, really make sure that you are watching where your fingers are. Easy to poke. I like to kind of just hold it at the edges of my foam at this point. Kind of poke in the center, get those fibers to hold. It does kind of work in your favor once in a while for that to stick. And then the more you kind of do this, you'll get it more condensed. Once again, we're gonna push for that to be kind of condensed to that firmness. But you also want to push that form. So by continuously moving it around to get that oval. And then once you start to get that form to take shape, really easy, just continue on until you get to that firmness level that we kind of talked about with the hand. And then you're just gonna finish out to where you've got 2 of these ear shapes. So pretty simple, continuing the same things we've been doing. It doesn't really change technique. You just wanna end with your body, your head, and then 2 little ears that'll sit on top. They're gonna look funky for a minute, but we'll get there. All right, and when we come back, we'll be doing some adding color and constructing.